It crept up on me this year. That's unusual. What usually happens is that I start to get a tingle at some point around the beginning of September. It's when the lists come out. Then I start to compile lists of my own, those I want to speak to and the things I want to buy. I start to exhibit the kind of excited impatience that makes kids jog up and down on the balls of their feet, the kind of querulous lamentations against time's obstinate refusal to get a bloody shake on. I opened Google Sheets for the first time that year and put things in cells and add up costs. I start to anticipate. There was zero anticipation this year. It crept up on me this year. Essen 2020. It crept up on me, reached over my shoulder and broke my heart. It's a question about what games are for, and without equivocation, I can say that games, for me, are about people. I chose games as my primary distraction, as a purgative against sitting in the pub night after night. It was meant as a ruse to convince me to cut down on the beer. Now I sit around the table and drink, and the failure of that particular gambit has saddled me with another expensive predilection. One that I'm surprised that I love so much. Games drew me in. The world of games, the argot of games, and the community of games. I'm not a community type. To participate in community is to care about a community, and I've never found that kind of emotional investment all that seemly. Also, when you care about a thing or a person or an idea, it has the ability to hurt you, and I've always been very good at shielding myself from hurt through apathy. I do care about this community though, in all the irrational ways a feeling of investment instills in you. I lament all the little defeats and laud all the little victories. I worry about the direction the community is taking and grind my teeth when I see the kind of baseless grandstanding and othering that I see reflected in the greater world around us. I understand that kind of small c conservatism better now than I ever have in my life, because I feel that urge to protect this community from all of these malign forces that infect every other aspect of life. I want an oasis. That's a baseless desire though, because like it or not, this community is the real world, and that's because it's made up of people. Delirious people, scared people, angry people, warm people, people of every persuasion. Life is about rubbing along, about dragging yourself through the everyday and not making it intolerable for others. It's about understanding that we all cannot be perfect at every second, that we're fallible, we fail, and the content of our character, our intrinsic goodness, cannot be narrowed down to a stupid tweet or a cross in a box. This community offers us a common ground, and we'd be dangerously negligent not to walk across it and meet in the middle. For all of that faintly absurd talk of compromise, there is a truth that there is a common ground that brings us together, and it's these games. I think back to when I entered the hobby and to how excited I was by everything I played. Firstly, it was this nebulous kind of excitement. There were shouts of "I love this," and then I began to pull these games apart, just to see the inner workings, and excitement had to move over to let admiration share some of the space. I began to see the skill and creativity that went into the creation of these things, and I'm sure part of it was how that mode of thought, the mode of thought needed to create games, was so alien to my own, so alien it seemed like magic. It still does. To be able to understand the nature of experiences and to craft them from the inanimate, to curate experience from a distance, to communicate them to people you will never meet. That is the task of designing games, and if that isn't magic, I don't know what is. It's only a short hop from that into seeking out those who will pull apart the intricacies of your burgeoning obsession, will get on the conversational merry-go-round with you, and do it with no irony whatsoever. There's a fairly nondescript post-industrial town in the west of Germany. It's home to a population of 500,000, an old mine and an awful football team and not much else. There was no reason for Essen to be on my radar at all until I got into games. But when I did, it became one of the most important places in the world to me, this grey little place. It's fitting though because the blinding colours of the world's biggest board game convention would stand out better against that kind of background. My first Essen has hardened in the amber of memory into something phantasmagorical. That's the wonderful thing about memory, it knocks all the hard edges off. I'd been toying with the idea of going, but left it to the last minute. I kept bringing it up in conversations till someone said, just bloody go. And I got onto the internet, found a cheap room in a hostel, sharing it with strangers, and crossed the country from the dilapidated east to the affluent west. The first day was intoxicating, the sheer number of people, the walls of boxes and that constant humming soundtrack of tens of thousands of people having separate conversations at the same time. It was a tornado of games and beer and fatigue. I was alone, but I found people who shepherded me through that first Essen experience. Friends of a friend let me take up a seat at the demo tables during the day and in their rented apartment at night, and in the early hours I would stumble onto the night bus, my head swimming in the world of games, a world that first Essen, for better or for worse, made me a part of. As a person gets older, they start to value routine more. They begin to value tradition more. A person starts to carve out milestones and pitch them into the future. That's what traditions are. Replays of past enjoyments or achievements thrown into the future to be enjoyed in perpetuity. Those annual meetups with old friends, that restaurant you always go to on your anniversary, gathering to watch a movie you've seen 1,000 times. These are born out of moments of joy that you want to possess. You want to hold on to them forever and play them again and again and again. By putting them in calendars, you plant them in the fields of the future so you can harvest them later. What usually happens is I start to get a tingle at some point around the beginning of September. Then, as the leaves start to brown and the memories of summer bike trips start to fade, I start to obsess about that nondescript post-industrial town in the west of Germany. All of my thought is bent on it. I want it now because it's precious to me. Then, after much childish lamentation, it's upon me. Before I know it, I'm thrust into the tumult of the whole thing. A weekend that lasts forever and is over in a second, that exhausts and exhilarates, that is the refreshing deluge of the new and the warming comfort of the familiar, that is the kick up the arse that gets you through the rest of the year. Essen comes at just the right time, as the glow of it takes you right through till Christmas. I arrive at Essen every year on the Wednesday, the day before the show begins. I forego the dropping the bags off at the accommodation, I forego the bagging the good bed or the setting out of my toiletries, and I head straight for the convention centre. The second I step onto the U-Bahn, all previous Essens collide into me, a jambalaya of memories, all indefinable soup with one or two clear pictures bubbling up to the surface. When I walk along that low-ceilinged atrium on the way to the train, descend the escalator and hear the stern German announcement of the next station, preceded by a jaunty xylophone riff that is definitely the first two notes of the Mario theme, I settle in. I don't feel at home because this place is far from the quotidian drudgery of that place. But the city slides over my shoulders, familiar like the first time you put on your winter coat at that time of the year when the air starts to breed crystals. The Wednesday at Essen is a magic act, a visual high five to the ingenuity of engineering. Arrive at the halls at 2 p.m. on the day before the show, and you're greeted with a bomb site. Plywoods and planks lay strewn across the floor like sleeping drunks. There is the ubiquitous sound of hammering and curtains of shrink wrap being flung from pallets. Everywhere you turn, you see the panicked faces of stall holders frantically punching the numbers of logistics companies into their phones, begging them to get their stock there on time. I float through all of this, unencumbered by the physical labour, but enlivened by the frisson of being backstage. I potter along and see friends. They're all politeness, but really they're too busy to talk to me, and then I bounce off to find someone else to annoy. Some of the German publishers buy a keg of beer to reward the people who've helped them build their stands, and I nip in and avail myself. This is the last time my head will be clear for the next week. I'm not just there to filch beer and get up people's noses, though. The reason I'm there on Wednesday is because I'm ostensibly there to work. And what a place to work. If there is a place that can be called the centre of any industry, it is Spiel. Everyone is there, and with a bit of preparation and a lot of cheekiness, I can get some of the real legends of the gaming world to commit their voices to tape. Essen allows me to stand at the centre of the world and annually chronicle the development of this art form. Essen allows me to say, I was there. After I've climbed over the empty pallets and blocks of wood and had that first beer, the rest of the weekend is a blur. There is the anarchic joy of attending the Deutsche Spielpreis ceremony. I always go with Uli Blenneman, and it's like they've let a couple of football hooligans into the formal mixer. There are endless promenades of the halls, taking in the grand and the modest, and in the evenings there are foggy nights in hotel lobbies and wood-panelled German restaurants. Why is Essen so special? Why are these gatherings of so many like-minded people so rewarding? It's because, under the guise of a board game convention, we're able to engage with people from around the world. We're able to bypass all of the superficial differences that the internet has persuaded us are vital and come to a realisation that it's not the blaring speakers and the labyrinthine stands. It's not the intricate game components and the shiny new mechanisms. All of these are just there to nudge us into the realisation that our salvation, whether it be personal or societal, lies in other people. It is in other people that I find myself. It's hard-coded into us. We have evolved to be gregarious. We need each other to be whole. Plato had it dead right in the Symposium. We are incomplete without each other. And while consumerism seeks to atomise us, it is places like Essen that have become the village green. A place where we can chat and play and be dynamic or aimless. Without these communal spaces, we lose our humanity, and places like Essen help us to retain it. This is why this year has been so difficult. For all of the good intentions and the hard work, the stark confines of the live stream or the Discord chat can never replace the visceral, life-affirming effects of meeting face to face. It was with a leaden heart I trudged through the Essen Virtual Con. Memory is always melancholy, but the memories that bubbled up this year were tinged with a genuine sadness. They were also annoyed, because they had to shoulder the burden for another year without any new blood to help them. All of those potential new friendships, all of those new experiences, the kind of moments that get you through those miserable days at work, all robbed by something that can only be seen under a microscope. The present, though, for all it wishes to protest, is not perpetual and will be over in a heartbeat, and before we know it, we'll be lugging bags crammed with new experiences through the halls of that convention centre in that fairly nondescript post-industrial town in the west of Germany, and we'll soon be bumping into each other and swapping stories, and soon we'll be queuing for the bogs and buying spiral potatoes, and sooner, far sooner than we think, we'll be together. And I really hope, in the heartiest of all my hearts, and I couldn't be more serious, I hope that you'll buy me a pint. This piece was made possible by the support of my patrons. You can become one too by going to patreon.com/5G4D. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.